Hello and welcome to LCBN TV with me, your host, Reverend Chris Wickland. And today, this is the UK in Focus show coming at you across all of Britain and across Europe. So, a very good morning to you all, and hope you're all having a great day so far. Now, as you can probably see, I'm having a bad face day and a bad hair day. I got hay fever, and for some reason, I decided to wake up at 3 o'clock in the night last night. So I just thought I'd pray because there's nothing else to do at that time of night. So now I'm exceptionally tired. However, someone recommended to me the other day, Chris, to help the collagen in your skin and to like make your face go a bit tighter, maybe you should use bee venom on your face. So I have. I've been using I've been using it for about a week. Bee venom, and it stings. It's as bad as it sounds, except the other day I put some in the arches of my eyes. Don't know why I did that. And anyway, it was like I got pepper sprayed in my face. It all went into my eyes. I literally couldn't open my eyes at all. They were just streaming with water. It felt like they were really stinging. And I was like clambering my way, trying to find my way to the bathroom, and fell into the shower and quickly switched it on. And I had to literally sit there for about 20 minutes with my eyes open, just letting all this water fall into my face. All because people keep saying to me, Chris, you look really tired. You need to take a break. Okay. The things that I have to go through to keep you lot happy. Anyway, but bee venom, does it work? I haven't a clue, but it hurts. Anyway, so today's show is really about blasphemy laws and two-tier justice because they're all the rage now, right? New blasphemy laws are coming in through the back door thanks to the CPS, and two-tier justice as well thanks to the CPS. So, as many of you are probably aware, officially blasphemy laws were supposed to be abolished by New Labour in the 2008 Criminal Justice Act. But this week, with the conviction of Hamid Koskan, blasphemy laws now exist in England. That's right. This law has been created by the Crown Prosecution Services, the CPS, and District Judge John McGarver. And between them, they have prosecuted and found a man guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offense because he burned a Quran. Do you remember? Outside the Turkish consulate. The CPS mounted a prosecution conflating the religious institution of Islam with Muslims as people. But they won't do this for Christianity. And a British judge has accepted this. Islamic blasphemy codes are now being enforced by arms of the British state via what the National Security Society, the National Secular Society, not Security Society, the National Secular Society describes as a troubling repurposing of public order laws as a proxy for blasphemy laws. Excuse me, I got hay fever. So Hamid Koskan, he burned a Quran outside the Turkish consulate in February before being attacked by a man. He got attacked for doing that by a man named Mossa Kadri, who has since pleaded guilty to the assault. Now, Mr. Koskan was initially charged under the Crime and Disorder Act with intention to cause against the religious institution of Islam harassment, alarm, or distress. This means that the Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS, were treating Islam itself as a person and a victim of Hamid's Quran burning. So, yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it? So they're basically saying that Islam is now a person. The person was offended and was caused distress and alarm because of the burning of the Quran. They will never do this for Judaism. They will never do this for Christianity. They won't do it for anybody else, but they'll do it for the Muslims because they're trying to pass Islamic blasphemy laws through the back door. Because it wasn't, as far as I'm aware of, Labour have tried and unsuccessfully tried to manage to get it through the door. But the CPS, which is really another government quango, is basically an unelected and pretty much unaccountable corporation, not corporation, but government kind of organization that's bringing in these new laws and things. If you remember, Robert Jenrick, only about a couple of months ago, tried to, successfully stopped through basically making it right in the public arena, how the CPS tried to do a new two-tier justice system based on your color, your ethnicity, and your religion. Whereas if I talked about that on my show, then I would probably get someone coming after me for doing that. But the CPS can get away with it. But there we go. So under English law, this is nonsensical, as in what to turn Islam into an individual. And so, as only people themselves can be harmed in this fashion, so this charge, if successful, would establishes a special protected status for Islam. Weeks ago, David Shepherd from The Spectator, he made a freedom of information request of the CPS, asking in how many instances of the religious institution of Islam appeared in recent indictments. And just a few days ago, they responded saying that it would take too long for them to review all the charges they'd made, and they would not comply with the FOI request. Well, go figure. The new charges under which Hammett is being convicted are scarcely better. The CPS claimed, and Judge McVara accepted, that Hammett committed a crime because his actions caused distress, harassment, and alarm, presumably to the man who attacked him as well, and that this was motivated by his hostility towards Muslims. Now, if anyone has hostility towards Jews, they won't do anything. If you have hostility against Christians, won't do anything. This is an insult to religious freedom and free speech. And as Toby Young, Tory peer, now I just need to say that I am speaking, when I say what I just said, not against, they won't do it for Christians, they won't do it for Jews, it's because and I'll explain this in a minute, that the CPS themselves, because they are a government quango, they themselves, a bit like Whitehall and various other organizations, they are full of very strong, hard left-leaning liberals. And with that comes their ideology. So Christians that are not liberal, but Christians that are just Bible-believing Christians are now considered right-wing extremist fundamental Christians. And so we're the trouble causers. So just bear all of this in mind. That as for Christians, this is a very dangerous time in this nation because they will use lawfare against you. And this is, you've got to take this seriously. But that does not mean we shut up and back down. No, that doesn't mean that at all. But you have to be aware that lawfare is being weaponized against Christians. Now, what happens this week is, they said, is an insult to religious freedom and free speech. As Toby Young, Tory peer and director of Free Speech Union, said, no one should be prosecuted for burning a copy of the Quran any more than they should be for burning a copy of the Bible. And we know for a fact that if you did burn a copy of the Bible, no one would say anything, wouldn't even make it to court. And so that blasphemy law has been constantly repealed. And courts should not attempt to bring them back via the back door. The National Secular Society agrees, saying that the outcome of this case is a significant blow to freedom of expression and signals a concerning capitulation to Islamic blasphemy codes. As Toby Young says, some religious people are going to be offended when their blasphemy codes are breached. But being offended from time to time is the price we pay for living in a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious society. And social cohesion requires that we tolerate the different religions practiced in our midst. It doesn't mean we have to respect their blasphemy codes. Despite the generous and committed support of the National Secular Society and Free Speech Union, Hammett Koskan has been found guilty. And this must not stand. Laws should not be created by the CPS and the judiciary, defying the explicit will of Parliament. And we're seeing this more and more and more. CPS is getting way too big for its boots, and it's basically bypassing Parliament, even trying to bypass the government. And as I said, Robert Jenrick had to really bring them to task. And because it brought what they were doing right into the public arena, they had to back down. But what they're doing is they're just doing things subtly under the radar, round the back door. So they're getting the same thing done anyway. So it was the work of centuries to build a society in which men and women could speak freely and not live in fear of criminal punishment if they offended other people's religious beliefs. We must guard that society with fierce purpose and utterly oppose those who would threaten it. You see, I'm a Christian, as you can tell by the dog collar, and a Christian minister. But, I get people that are doing stuff on TV, and there are many things that offend me all of the time. And there are a lot of things that they do that offend Christianity as a religion. And some things are, I will be honest with you, some things are blatantly out of order. But most time it's just like, well, we live in a liberal democratic society and a multicultural, multiracial, and multi-religious society. So therefore we have to live and let live. And we have to, have to take the rough with the smooth. But it would appear that according to the CPS, the Home Office, Prevent, and various other organizations, various other quangos, that that doesn't apply to Islam. So let's not forget, like I said, CPS tried to bring in two-tier justice just a couple of months back, which Robert Jenrick public campaign brought to an end. But the CPS, Whitehall, the civil service, and other government quangos well, it's not really government quangos, but quangos have been noted for its pro-Islamic and hard left liberal leanings of late. And it has not gone unnoticed how unaccountable, unelected quangos are running this country and are basically a law unto themselves. So much so that Parliament is even having to fight with these guys, and they're doing things against the will of Parliament. You see, at this time, the people that really have the power is not the parliamentarians, it is Whitehall. It is people like the CPS, it is the civil service. They're the ones that hold all the keys to power, not the democratically elected people in Parliament, unfortunately. And that needs to change. Now, I know some good friends personally who have been attacked by certain quangos and have had their lives literally ruined by these departments, which have allegedly gone way beyond their prescribed legal remit, with the likes of Hope Not Hate allegedly getting funding from the police and various other government bodies. I begin to question just what is going on here, seeing as it's people like Hope Not Hate that like to persecute Christians, prosecute Christians, use lawfare against Christians by identifying Christians who say things that goes against their narrative and then reports them to the various quangos that's necessary. So people in this nation are now starting to get very tired of this two-tier justice, and it's only getting worse. And the CPS, in part, seem to be the ones causing this divide in our justice system. Now, this was on the Daily Telegraph this week. According to Prevent, they're the people, the government body to stop people from getting involved into terrorism. According to Prevent, which is, again, a very hard left, extremist left department, they define extreme right terrorism as the active or vocal support of ideologies that advocate discrimination or violence against minority groups, but not Christians. The three most common subcategories of extreme right-wing terrorist ideologies and their narratives are cultural nationalism. So if you're patriotic, you are a terrorist. Western culture. If you say that Western culture is under threat from mass migration and a lack of integration by certain ethnic and cultural groups, you are a right-wing terrorist, according to Prevent. So this basically means that 70% of the British population now need to be locked up in prison because they're a bunch of right-wing bigot terrorists. This is all just quango speak for shut your mouth, and if you don't, we will weaponize words such as right-wing extremists and terrorists to make you quiet and shut you up. Oh, and we'll use people like Lucy Connolly as public examples to keep you quiet. Now, this is really quite alarming, the things that are going on in our country right now. So the Daily Telegraph rightly put that in their paper and just like, what is this about? How dare Prevent actually weaponize certain phrases so that people can't even have a conversation about immigration. Like, people are concerned about the sheer influx of immigration and it's causing cultural flux. You can't say that, because if you say that, you are a terrorist. So we're moving away now from the language of being right wing. Oh, you're a right winger or a right wing bigot. Now they're weaponizing it because they think, well, that's clearly not doing the job that we wanted. So now what we're going to say is you're a hard right fundamental bigot and a terrorist. This is what's coming on this nation to shut you up. Watch it out. Watch out for this. This is nasty, nasty stuff. Anyway, so people are getting very tired of all this two-tier justice. And here's some examples of some stuff that's in the news this week of some two-tier justice. Let's watch this.
Today, the insanity of the British justice system was laid bare because Lucy Connolly, 31 months in prison for a social media post in which she mentioned burning down asylum hotels. A teenager actually set fire to a property which killed a pensioner. What sentence did they get? 32 months. So if you look closely here now, if you're watching us on TV or online, this is the moment that 16-year-old and his two friends threw a firework through the pensioner Robert Price's window in East London. Just notice how his home's already boarded up, by the way. So there you go. This was the end of a long campaign of abuse against this pensioner. Mr. Price sadly died in the fire that they caused. And that 16-year-old has got just 32 months in prison. It's remarkable, isn't it? Lucy Connolly, 31 months. Check these two out. Two people smugglers who piloted a boat across the Channel carrying 70 people, two of whom died, have today been sentenced to 8 months in prison. 8 months. So Lucy Connolly, nearly 4 times as long behind bars as two foreigners who killed people whilst trying to invade Britain. Make it make sense. Just have a look at some of the other cases from recent days and weeks. A man who wore nappies and offered to pay a 14-year-old girl for sex, no prison time. A sex offender who exposed himself at Romford Station avoided jail. He's exposed himself, apparently, on 7 occasions. A man in Swindon avoided jail for strangling his partner and threatening to kill his brother-in-law. A Dunfermline drug dealer who sold ecstasy to school children was not sent to prison. A bloke who offered a 6-year-old £100 to lift her top up to him on Snapchat. Any ideas, anyone, where this is going? You guessed it, he's avoided jail. Yeah. Every single person that I've rattled off there should obviously be in prison, apart from Lucy Connolly. Just hang on, tell us again, Sir Keir Starmer, about free speech in Britain.
Let me give you the principles that I would apply. Firstly, I'm strongly in favour of free speech. We've had free speech in this country for a very, very long time, and we protect it fiercely. I'm equally, though, against incitement to violence against other people. That has long been an offence in our country, and rightly so. And so I say, don't know the details of this case, but free speech, yes. Incitement to violence, no.
So that was in the news earlier this week, and it's making people very cross. And the fact that even having these kind of conversations would be deemed controversial to some people, even that we're being right wing by even having these conversations. But there's some clearly, as a Christian and from the Bible's very clear that God hates unjust scales. And clearly the scales of justice in this nation are unjust. Lady Law, you may see her, she's supposed to have a blindfold and she holds the scales of justice. Well, at the moment we have the scales of justice with the words two-tier written on them, and Lady Justice has got an eye peeping through so she can see what color are you and what religion are you. And if you're a certain ethnicity and a certain color, the law will go in your favor. But if you're not, the law won't go in your favor. That is what it seems to be looking like. I'm not saying that is how it is, but that's certainly how it seems to be. And it's not going unnoticed. And the CPS are not helping with this particular issue. Now, another story came out this week as a child rapist was handed an unduly lenient sentence after claiming that he was a changed person who was involved with his local mosque. The Court of Appeal has ruled that Ibra Hussein, 47, who was jailed for 6.5 years for drugging a 13-year-old girl and raping her twice, should serve a longer sentence because the judge had been so soft on him. Hussein was one of 3 men, including brothers Imtiaz and Fayaz Ahmed, aged 62 and 45, who were convicted of raping the girl in Keighley in the 90s. They were jailed for 9 years and 7.5 years, respectively, involved in his local mosque. The court was told the 3 supplied the vulnerable girl with money, drugs, and alcohol in return for sex. She was taken to various places where she was raped over several years, and many of the offences took place in the flats above the brothers' family grocery shop. In a victim impact statement, she said that almost 30 years after the abuse, she still suffered flashbacks, and the trauma left her unable to trust people, including the services there to protect her. Mitigating, Jane Beckett said Hussein, who later served time in jail for drug offences, was now married with children and was a very, very different man who was involved with his local mosque and school. However, their sentences were referred to the Court of Appeal by Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, and Lucy Rigby, the Solicitor General, to decide if these sentences were unduly lenient. The appeal court judges have now decided that the sentences were far too lenient and have increased Hussein and Fayez Ahmed's sentences to 10 years and Imtiaz Ahmed's term to 11 years. Ms. Risby said that the case involving the shocking and hideous abuse of a vulnerable teenager by these three sexual predators referred these sentences to the Court of Appeal because, in my view, they were unduly lenient. I attended court for the hearing, and I very much welcome the Court Appeal's significant increases to these sentences. Robert Jenrick, the Shadow's Justice Secretary, criticized the failure to take tougher action when Hussein was initially sentenced by Judge Ahmed Nadeem. He said this is a damning indictment of Judge Nadeem's flawed approach to sentencing in this case, which reduced one of the rapist's sentences ostensibly because he's now very, very different and involved with his local mosque. How does being involved in your local mosque reduce your sentence for child rape? It is deeply troubling that these three offenders were part of a wider group tried for similar abuse, but the statutory window for referring the other 5 sentences under the unduly lenient sentence scheme has now expired. That means justice delayed has become justice denied. This case should mark a turning point. Serious concerns must now be raised about the constancy and adequacy of sentencing across the rape gang trials as a whole. And so this is just ongoing. And this is one of the things with the Pakistani Muslim rape gang scandals, that when the truth of this comes out, and I know for me and my church, we are praying that the truth of that scandal will be exposed to this nation. It's one of the things that we feel is very important as a church, that the lid on this needs to be blown, because truth, justice, and righteousness needs to prevail. And as long as this stuff is going on in the shadows, then it can't in this nation. And the more we see unfair sentencing in this kind of way, and we see this seemingly two-tier justice where the harsher criminals get lesser sentences, and then those that have said hurty words on Facebook or X or whatever, they get the book thrown at them, seems completely disproportionate. Now, I appreciate people, maybe the judges were trying to use Lucy Connolly as a public example, but even so, where do we draw the line now on freedom of speech? It seems that it's all going one way. You can criticize Christianity, you can burn Bibles, no one cares a hoot. You do this, you speak against Islam, you speak against the Quran or tear up a Quran or something like that, well, then they will throw the book at you. And you have to ask, what is behind all this? Why are they doing this? Why now prevent coming out with all this stuff basically saying that if you're a nationalist or you're patriotic to your nation, that you're potentially a terrorist? Now, you might say that's not actually what that quote said earlier on, but pretty much on those lines, because if you are a nationalist and you are patriotic, the chances are that you would be concerned about mass immigration, bearing in mind that in the last 25 years, there has been more migration into this country than in all of Great Britain's history. More migration in the last 25 years than when the Romans came in, the Saxons, the Vikings, all of that. Okay, the Jews, the Indians, and all sorts of people that have come in over all the years. Okay, and I don't mean Jews in the sense that goes right back to medieval times, but I'm just saying all the migration that's come into this nation, okay, does not even come close to what's happened in the last 25 years. And so people are concerned, and people shouldn't be literally branded with names that they're now not just far right, because they're not far right, they're just concerned citizens, but now they're far right terrorists. Where will the left end? Where will they stop? with their accusations, and they're weaponizing using lawfare to come against people to shut them up. There just isn't enough room in prisons to put all of us right-wing terrorists. And it's such a shame now that we're living in Great Britain. And as I said in last week's show, this is now a post-free speech culture. We don't have free speech in this nation anymore. And it's quite clear by some of the stories that I keep highlighting, which are just from mainstream media. It's not like in the right-wing Times or anything like that. It's just in mainstream media, and more people are being concerned about the stifling of opinion, of free speech, of freedom of religion, freedom to question religion, freedom to question the narrative of the day. Because we're not allowed to do this now, I do believe we're now in the beginnings of a totalitarian state and a Marxist republic. That is basically now what Britain is becoming. But this is causing an interesting backlash. Now, I'm not going to say who this person is, but I was told by a friend the other day, or a person the other day, that they were at this meeting, and he was in a room, and there was all of these people in this room, and a lot of these people in this room wanted. Now, I've been warning about this for a long time. Now, my friend was there not because he chose to be there. It was just he was there, and then these other people happened to be there. So it wasn't like he was a part of some dodgy conference. And I've been warning mainstream Christianity. I've been putting it, and I put this on your doorstep because this is your responsibility. Okay. I've warned many times in the show, I've warned prophetically as well, that if Christians, especially mainstream churches, don't take this seriously, what I'm about to say now is what's going to happen on the streets, and it will be your fault because you chose not to get involved, because you chose that, well, I don't want to get involved in politics because it's all about church, and we don't want to get involved, and we don't want to be branded as right-wing thugs, and our reputation is more important than laying down our lives for Christ. Okay? There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of young people, not necessarily from this country, who are converting to Christianity and want to have a holy war against the Muslims. Okay? This is frightening. This is not good. Okay? And I have warned repeatedly, saying that if the mainstream church, and that's all of Christendom, but specifically the mainstream church, if they do not take up their cross and take up their mantle, then there will be people that will take the cross and they'll weaponize the cross and use it for purposes of violence and sectarianism. This is not what we want to see on our streets. We do not want to see that. We do not want to see like a modern day crusades. Well, that is not what we want to see. And I know that if mainstream Christianity does not get involved and doesn't get its hands dirty and start getting involved in politics and start praying about the stuff that's going on in our nation, but simply wants to go la 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 la, then I put this at your doorstep. Because if you don't raise the issue of this and start praying into this and start dealing with this, this is what we're going to have on our streets. We are going to have bloodshed on our streets, and some of it will come from Christians who will weaponize Christianity and use it to wage a holy war. That is not what we want to see. Anyways, enough of all this bad news and this doom and gloom, because it can get one's day down a bit. Let's end this news segment of the show on a bit of a high note. Now, as you know, the silent revival, the quiet revival, is doing its job, doing its numbers, and we've had quite a few high-profile people come to faith of late. And now another one has been won to the cause. Praise God. Another media personality. This time it's Alex Phillips, the very outspoken pro-British, pro-nationalist, pro-Christian. So basically she's a terrorist, according to Prevent. So the very outspoken pro-British news reporter who works at Talk TV and Talk Radio. Over the weekend, she got baptized in her commitment to a Christian faith. So let's have a little watch of that segment now. This was on Talk TV earlier this week.
Alex Phillips is standing by, but while we wait to go over to Alex, let me play you this. So she posted this video on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And this is her getting baptized in the sea. There you are. This is the sea off the coast of Eastbourne, the holy city of Eastbourne. The caption here says Phillips dunked, which perhaps is a little irreverent, but look, here she is. I guess that's a vicar. There's a friend there as well. Hang on a second. I think she gets chucked under now. Hang on. Go. So presumably they're saying welcome to the world of God and Christ, that sort of thing. I don't know what they actually say at this point. I was baptized, but it was when I was a baby. And that was a fairly long time ago. There she goes. I don't want any jokes about why did they let her come up again. Seriously, though, I just thought it's a very interesting thing. I don't want to be rude, but, Alex is not a baby. And, it's an interesting thing to do at her time of life. So welcome to the show, Alex. Hello, Alex.
Hi, my darling. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm at a memorial service for my great friend Patrick O'Flynn, so I'm in the pub right now. So if there's distractions and noise, I'm sorry, but
we can hear you. We can hear you. So, of course, Patrick was a great guy, and it's a good place for you to be right now. We just played that video of you getting baptized in the sea off the coast of the holy city of Eastbourne. Why have you done that now? I mean, when we used to work together, you often, talk to me about your religious beliefs and everything. Yeah. But why be baptized now at this stage of your life?
You know what? These things that I've been going to church for 4 years. I've been going dedicated, wanting to learn about the Bible, wanting to learn about faith. I know people go, oh, well, everyone's doing it now. It's become the vogue thing. But for me, it really has been a proper journey and a connection with, it sounds difficult, people who aren't religious, but a connection with God and a connection with our heritage. And I've been going to church, but you kind of feel slightly fraudulent going to church when you're not baptized. And I've been wanting to do this for so long. I've kept trying to organize it, but getting the right people involved and this, that, and the other, and booking an appointment. And there was this conversation with my family the other day. And they just said, we're doing baptisms in the sea. My brother's very Christian. We're doing baptisms in the sea on Sunday. Can you come down? I couldn't come down on Sunday. I said, I can come down Monday. And a very, very good friend of mine, Father Phil Harris, who's very pastoral towards me. He phones me all the time, checks in how I'm doing. He's not my vicar, but in the West Midlands. I go to a church in London, which is a huge church. And so sometimes you don't have that intimate connection with the people that you'd want to be around for baptism. And my brother and my brother's wife have been very instrumental in my learning about Christianity and the building of my faith. We're just like, we can do it. We'll bring people in the church. All of the family's going to come. And I told this to Father Phil, and he said, I'll come and do it. Wow. And he didn't just come and do it. He got the train all the way down from the West Midlands to Eastbourne. It was a sunny day. It was beautiful weather. They call it the Caribbean of England. Maybe that's a push.
Do they?
But he dug out old vestments and robes from when he was ordained, because they're not the silk but the cotton ones. He put on the full garb. You've got my brother's wife in a wetsuit, me in gym kit, and he's like wading into the sea like John the Baptist, and we're just like, let's get this thing done. Let's do it. It was so amazing. I cried.
It is an incredible thing to see. Let me ask you a very spiritual question.
Go on.
Was it cold? Was the sea cold?
No, it wasn't. And, the focus was so much on doing the baptism, and it felt right. In the Bible, when Jesus is baptized by John, it is in the river. It's not in the church with incense and books and passages, and you say this and I say that. Although we did do that. We had a proper ordained baptism with the proper liturgy before I got into the sea, but it was a lovely way of doing it because it just feels so informal. I had all of my brother and his wife's family and the extended family standing on the sea, clapping and cheering, and everyone was praying over me. And it's exactly how I wanted it to be, just authentic, and real and of the moment.
Yeah, it was good. It's a really good little video. But what, you know, and by the way, I've been godly for so much longer than you, because I was baptized when I was a baby, which, as you know, was some time ago. So may I welcome you to my church, and I hope that you enjoy it. But seriously, Alex, we haven't got long to go, but you know, you talk about 4 years. Why do you think? Why only 4 years ago did you begin your journey towards Christian faith, or towards serious Christian faith?
In all honesty, I lived in India and I studied philosophy at university, and I got really into Hinduism and Vedic beliefs as a study. Not as a religion, but as a study, because I'm fascinated by these things. And then I thought I really ought to poke under the bonnet of what makes Britain run. Who are we? What's our legacy? What's our heritage? What is this Christianity that you sing about in school, and you might go to church with the brownies, or maybe you went to Sunday school, but what is it really? And I just thought, I just want to study it. I just want to find out. So I opened the Bible and got stuck in, and then doors flew open. I know that sounds cliche, but doors flew open. Everything made sense to me. And the more I read, and the more I then wanted to attend church, and you can't see right now, but the person holding the camera for me is my best friend, Belinda DeLucy.
Oh, hi, Belinda.
You know, Belinda, she encouraged me to go to a particular church in London who she thought would really suit me. And it did. And then for 4 years, it changes you. You know, when you open that book, and when you go to church, and when you find the place that fits, and you delve into our national religion, the psychology, the meanings, the lessons, forget all this stuff you get on YouTube, like, you know, Millionaire in a Day, and this is how you can best affect your life, and Jordan Peterson, all those people who are very worthy. But we have the best self-help book. It's called the Bible. And if people it's in complicated language, and it's hard to sort of, you know, necessarily mirror it to the modern age. But if you do it, if you read it, if you look at what we've got, and if you just look at the evidence of how Western civilization has advanced, how we're responsible for all of the inventions, for peace, for democracy, for the legal system, for women's rights, you realize what Christianity has brought the world. And I just wanted to learn more about it. And when I learned about it, it then became a situation of, this is me.
Well, Alex, without getting too prosaic about it, has this brought, you know, you're developing Christian faith in this great gesture you made at the weekend, or Monday, in the sea off the coast of Eastbourne? Has it brought a sort of meaning to life for you? Because for most of us, we just tolerate this meaningless chaos, this inferno that we suffer. But has it really helped you? Has it really? Yeah.
It has. And this isn't just gesture politics, or, you know, something I did as a fad. I've been going to church and reading the Bible for 4 years. This has grown to be such an important part of me. I like to call it vitamin G. You know, people always want to get supplements and, you know, get their sunshine and a good night's sleep. But a little bit of vitamin G, a bit of vitamin God on a Sunday. And really, you know, until you open that text, until you delve into the narratives, and until you understand the historical significance, and you let that into your life, all of a sudden it clicks, and you suddenly go, wow, this is what it was all along.
Amazing, Alex.
And there you go. So that's a little bit of good news, isn't it? For Alex there, Alex Phillips from Talk TV. So there is some good stuff that's going on in our nation right now. There's some serious stuff, which I you know, if it's any consolation to you, I really don't like talking about all this doom. Excuse me a second. I really don't like talking about all this doom and gloom and stuff that goes on inside our nation. It's really quite dark, but we have to talk about these things because they are going on. And I'm not having a go at the mainstream church, mainstream Christianity, because they do seem to be like, it's not my problem. I don't want to get involved. I'm not trying to be horrible or just, you know, trying to use shock tactics. The problem is that our nation is right on a knife edge right now, and the church just doesn't want to seem to take responsibility. The church is too busy with virtue signaling. The church is too busy with business as usual. The church is too busy with her own reputation, as opposed to possibly putting that reputation down, and possibly being wrongly tarred with the tarred and feathered with the the accusation of being right wing and all that kind of stuff. If there's ever a time that the church needs to stand up, I meet too many Christians that I mean, for example, I'm by the churches in Portsmouth, they think that I am a right wing bigot because of the simple fact that I stand up for this nation because of the heritage of Great Britain. And I'm reading lots of books about how Britain has been formed through Christianity, how our laws were formed through Christianity. Simple things. I was reading a case a long time ago. It was about a woman. I can't remember when it was, but it, in the last 200 years. But basically, she was she was a single woman with a couple of kids, and she went out for a day with some friends, and they went to this restaurant place where she had like an ice cream float, and so she had some ice cream, and she poured some like ginger beer on top and started eating it. Um, and then as she got to the last bit of ginger beer poured out popped a slug, pop, onto her ice cream, and she immediately had to be hospitalized because what the slug had done to her, it made her violently ill. And so then she tried to sue the ginger beer company. Well, of course, because there was no official contract made between her and the company, and indeed it was her friend that actually purchased the bottle, not the woman that got poisoned. This became a big legal issue. But it was a simple fact that the argument of the Bible was so important in that time in society that it was like, well, we should do to others as we'd have them do to others, and love your neighbor. And how is a company loving their neighbor and doing to others as they would have done to them if they don't give this woman a payout? And so eventually they won the case, but it was actually just an example of so many where the Bible and English law was set through principles governed by Scripture. And so I spend a lot of time reading books and things about our national heritage, our national history. A lot of Christians today just not interested, don't care. But a lot of the new Christians that are getting saved at this hour through this silent revival are deeply patriotic, and wouldn't say nationalistic, but definitely patriotic to their nation and to this country. And that's quite interesting. Mainstream Christianity, it's all about the church. You can't be a Christian and patriotic. We're of a kingdom that's not of this earth. Yeah, I've said multiple times, I've done a lot of Bible teaching on it. The Bible teaches both. Yes, that's true that you are not of a kingdom that's of this earth, but nevertheless, I've also brought out other scriptures as well, which does talk about, that God's placed you in the nations, and that the nations are represented in the New Jerusalem and the new heaven. And so these things are important, and you're a representative of your nation when you enter the courts of heaven to pray and intercede. And so because of my angle on this, I'm often called a right-wing bigot by the churches in Portsmouth. Thank you very much, churches in Portsmouth. And so basically, because we are patriotic for this nation because of what Christianity has done. A bit like Alex Phillips. If you listen to her on talk, she's very patriotic to this nation, and she's often eschewing how Christianity has been such a benefit to this nation. And why is it that we are living in a society where the police will arrest you for preaching the Bible, but they won't arrest you if you preach the Quran. They will arrest you if you're a Christian doing street outreach, but they won't arrest an Islamic street preacher. All of these things. And so Alex Phillips speaks out against this. And so she's called, she's got death threats and stuff against her. She sometimes has to have security around her because of the nature of her job, because she just calls out the things that she's calling out. So, I'm a little fish, she's a big fish, I'm just a little tiddly little fish, but I'm calling things out, and I'm having other Christians calling me names because basically, with respect, because I am doing my job. I am actually standing up for righteousness, and I'm trying to be a prophetic voice to those in power at this time. And every Christian should be a prophetic voice to power, because that is the responsibility of the church, to be a prophetic voice to those in power. That is what we should be, the voice of reason. We should be the voice of conscience. That is what we are to be in part to the nation in which we represent. But mainstream Christianity, for the most part, doesn't want to get involved, would rather batten down the hatches and hope that this will all go away. But unfortunately, it's not going to go away, and it's only going to get worse. And the reason why I put some accusation to the foot of mainstream churches is because their inactivity to get involved in what's going on in our nation right now is going to be the very reason why we could have genuine far right nationalists using the cross to create holy war against others in this nation that they deem that shouldn't be here. That would be awful. We don't want that. And so that is why, but the thing is, mainstream Christianity don't want to get involved, and they just want to label people like me as right-wing thugs and bigots, because it's easier for them to throw mud at me than for them to actually realize that the reason why they're throwing mud at me is because actually I'm provoking them because they don't do anything. Is actually, well, we do food banks, Chris. Well, good for you. So do we. So one of the things that I want to just focus on towards the end of today's show is praying for our nation. I'm sorry, I'm so gobby as well. I just get so incensed at Christians' lack of response, especially progressive and liberal Christians. You know, I get them slinging mud at me all of the time, and it gets really boring. It doesn't hurt me or it doesn't offend me or anything. It's just like it's really boring. And I often throw this around. What are you doing for this nation? Well, of course, we don't do anything for this nation because blah 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 blah. And they can justify it and say whatever they want. Anyway, I'm rambling. But I think what's important is that for the church and for our nation is that we need to be praying. We've just started some exciting new things at our church. So on Monday nights and Wednesday nights, we're doing this thing. So on a Monday night, it's called a Tabernacle of David Praise. And we don't sing any known songs that you will have never heard these songs. It's me and a friend and lots of machines and synthesizers and stuff. And we basically just go by the leading of the Holy Spirit and just follow where he goes. And then the people in the prayer room, they will follow that and they will sing and declare and praise and worship with their own words and use the Psalms. And then they'll come on the mic as well and they'll pray for things for our nation. But not just praying for our nation, but based on the prophecies that have been said for this nation, and therefore using that prophetic blueprint, so to speak, to pray specifically for things going on in our nation. So it's a really powerful time of prophetic praise, worship, and prophetic praying. And on Wednesday, we're just about to start this new thing, which is worship and healing nights. But again, you see, the problem is with worship is I personally think there's a big disconnect between worship as we think we understand it and heavenly worship. Now, heavenly worship does have a sense of structure to it, even uses liturgy, but it's dynamic, it's powerful. Whereas worship on the earth sometimes is, it often isn't. You know, and I was at a meeting the other day, and we come to this really tender moment, you know, with the Holy Spirit, and then someone just cuts across it and just wants to pray, and it's just like, oh. And then you get out the worship song, you know, that one was particularly Oceans, and then they all stand up to attention because that's how we do it in this country. We stand when we praise and worship, and I just felt within myself this real frustration. It's like there's so much more to worship than that. That is well, it is worship, but it's like, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like 1. Okay, God has got so much more for us, and He wants vivacious heavenly worship down here on the earth. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want a dynamic encounter with Jesus, or do you just want formulaic, boring worship? Well, you might do. I don't know. But and so our Wednesday night thing that we're starting up, and all these things will be live fed onto YouTube, and it's all beautifully mixed. So you can listen to it on your TV or listen to it on your stereo, and it'll sound really nice. So you can be involved and be in the room, even though you're not in the room. They'll go out live, and then they'll also just stay on my YouTube channel, which is Chris Wickland. That's the YouTube channel. And yeah, and so I'd encourage you to tune into that if you can. And basically, the Wednesday night one is basically the first hour is just worship. Again, teaching people to worship, not based around the structure of a song that they know, but actually to create from inspirational, on the spot kind of worship, which me and my friend will be leading, and then that they can use the book of Psalms to give them the language to be able to truly praise God as well. So that they're learning to break out of the mold and the model of what they think worship is, and they become more directly involved in it. And then in the second hour of that 2 hour evening, we then, as we've ministered to God, I believe that He wants to then minister to us in healing. And so it's a time that then some people who feel like they need healing can just come to near the front, and no one's going to pray for them. No one's going to touch them. The worship will carry on, because there are scriptures. Let me just get my Bible out. I think it's Psalm 103. Listen to this. This is like a really weird translation, so probably might not be there. Yeah, so this is the connection. Now, if you want to know about spiritual warfare, if you want to know about praise and worship, you're not going to find it in your New Testament. You're going to find it in the Psalms mostly. Listen to this, right? Bless the Lord, my soul, with all my being, I will bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, my soul, forget none of his benefits. Now, we need to bless God. We need to worship him. We need to praise him. We need to adore him. And through doing that, verse 3 and 4, he pardons all my wrongdoing and heals all my ills. He rescues me from death's pit and crowns me with love and compassion. And so the key to healing and the key to forgiveness, although we just ask for forgiveness, but the key to healing is through forgiveness, but also it's through praise and worship. And so these Wednesday night evenings we're doing, it's basically improvised praise, improvised worship. And then the second hour, the worship will carry on. And for those that want to come forward and just receive healing from the Lord, they can do so. Because you see, the Bible is clear. You bless him, he will forgive you, he will heal you. It's all in the Psalms. So that's something that we're doing. And so it's time really for us as Christians to really break out of the envelope, so to speak, and move into new territory. And I believe that as revival is now beginning in this nation, we have an opportunity to press into the things of God in probably ways that we've not done before. And so these things that I've now just got started, although the first one didn't go on YouTube, the first one went on Facebook. So all the others will go on YouTube from next week. But the point is that we're now at an epoch of a big move of God. And at big moves of God, God tends to really move more by his spirit. And so me being a crazy charismatic, I really want to press into those areas where we can really experience God. And what I love about this particular thing we're doing is it's not really about me. It's not about names or anything like that. So like on the Wednesday night thing, when people come to get healed or healing, there'll be no one laying hands on them. There'll be no names. There'll be no famous people there. It will just be them and Jesus. Jesus is the one that's famous, of course. And it'll just be that in that environment. As I said, we did our first Monday night prayer thing this week. And it was, considering we did not know where it was going to go or how it was going to go, it was just beautiful. In fact, the recording that we did, we only managed to do half an hour of a 2 hour set. And I can't stop listening to it. It's so beautiful listening to the music that's just completely Holy Spirit led. And then also listening to the prayers that people praying and responding prophetically to what's going on in our nation, because they had it on the board what to pray for, but also weaving that into the music as well. It was very powerful, very dynamic. And quite frankly, I don't want to go back and do normal, boring old church. We still do Sunday and stuff. But what I'm hoping that will happen is from the midweek meetings that they will bring that into the Sunday meetings, and it will just transform and transfigure our Sunday meetings. Because I just don't want to do a hymn and a thing anymore. I just don't want to do business as usual. I want to, really encounter God in a real, beautiful and dynamic way. And if we're going to do that, that means we have to push the envelope. It means we have to come out the box, not for the sake of coming out the box or pushing the envelope for the sake of it. But I do believe prophetically, and we're experimenting with this in our church to see if is it real, and I do believe it is, because we've started it, and it's something that I've been practicing and doing in my own quiet time now for the last several months, and it works, and it's really dynamic, and it's really changing me as well. I'm being healed of things that I haven't been able to shift or shake like forever, and being in this presence of God in this way and worshiping in this way is actually resetting my mind. I'm thinking differently. I'm acting differently. Something's happening on the inside of me. It's changing me. So I know personally that it will bring healing. Now, I do a lot of healing ministry for people, and it takes hours and hours and hours of time and effort. But I just felt the Holy Spirit saying, do these evenings because this is what he wants, not what I want. Do these evenings, and I will get done in an hour what could take several sessions. And that's the place we need to get to. We need to accelerate things, and God wants to accelerate things with his presence. Now, we're going to have to finish the show a little bit earlier today because we started late, and I want the LCBN to get all their other programs basically on time. So I'm done for today. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm sorry if I've had a bit of a rant. I do get very worried about the state of our nation, and it does concern me that we've got unelected quangos that are just making up laws independent of Parliament and independent of the will of Parliament. These are serious times, and we do need to be praying for this nation. Remember, we don't want sectarian violence. We don't want ultra right-wing Christian nationalists to rise up and create a holy war. That will be the worst thing for Christianity, and it will be the worst thing for this nation. So as Christians, we need to pray and take these times seriously. Anyway, until next time, God richly bless you. Goodbye.